Hey Joe,
What's going on?
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Can I'm not getting any audio yet.
Let's see.
Joe, I can hear you.
Hey,
Let's
Zach,
see.
I can hear
doesn't look
Joe.
like you're muted either. Oh wait.
Zach, can you hear Joe?
Oh, try it again, Joe.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Okay. This is the thing I thought, well, something wrong with his computer. I had my volume turned down. What a meathead. It was good to see you.
Yeah, good to see y'all.
Yeah. That must be a very valuable jacket you've got. That's probably the
Yeah,
first run of a RU football jacket, isn't
yeah, that's a an antique right there.
it? Many years ago, right?
Oh yeah, long time.
So you've been hard at it this morning?
Yeah, we started. My schedule is set up a little bit later in the day, so
Mm,
usually start about 9ish and then go to about 6:30. So
okay, excellent. Well, appreciate you joining us.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
this is kind of a little series we put together, I guess, since you graduated. What year did you graduate, Joe?
2016.
2016. Okay. And we just realized that a lot of our students have not made up their mind what they want to do the rest of their life when they're 18, and a lot of
Yeah,
it's just being exposed to different options and to see what's available really. And
yeah,
so have folks like yourself just to come back and share some about your journey and where it's led to. So where'd you grow up, Joe? I recall meeting your mom, and she was telling me something about watching Burt Reynolds and Smokey and the Bandit or something like that.
yeah. So, fun fact, my dad was in Smokey and the Bandit,
Oh, no.
just as like way off in the distance. So I'm from Cleveland, Georgia, Helen area. That's where most people know it as. Um, Went to high school up there and then ended up going over to Reinhardt to play football. I'd never heard of Reinhardt before. And then they hit me up with football and went there for 4 years, loved it, and then tried to stay in touch with as much people as I could. But um, you know, after college, everybody kind of goes their separate ways. Then Elliot Clark, um, he went to PT school or PT pharmacy school,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about doing PT. Started as a tech right after Reinhardt. So I think I graduated May 6th, 2016, and then started as a tech here at Benchmark in this clinic on May 9th.
Did
And
you really?
then,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. So you had connections at that office? No, that's your hometown, right?
yeah. I had known some people who had worked here as therapists. And the summer before my senior year, I observed here. So really just stayed in the clinic, kind of got dipped my toes into it, learned a little bit more about PT, and then they asked me to come on as a tech, which is essentially supportive personnel for physical therapists. And um, you know, did that until December, but really missed the bench side of biology and all of that. So I thought, well, I want to do something with my bio degree. Decided to move up to North Carolina. Worked as an environmental educator out on the Outer Banks for about 6 months, and
Is that
then
so? I had no idea you did that.
yeah, basically took kids out and showed them the biology of it. And
Wait, did you make balloon animals?
I did not make any balloon animals.
I'm
I
only
should
because
have.
you
I didn't. I
showed
don't
up,
know why that didn't come up.
you showed up, started making balloon animals at a spring day, and I was like, Joe, where did you learn to do this? YouTube last night?
Yeah, YouTube.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
can you share? This year, all of our Beyond Dobbs speakers have been alumni, basically, except for one, which has been
yeah,
really fun for us as faculty. But I think sometimes being at a small school, it's easy to think Well, yeah, but they went to a big school. I can't possibly get into a PT school, this and that. So can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit about when you were a student here, how serious you took it? How do you find that balance with athletics and the classroom and all that?
Yeah. I think that for me personally, it was really important to dip my toes into a lot of stuff as far as, you know, until I was really a senior, like second semester, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew PT was a big option for me that I wanted to attempt, and I started looking into, required grades and stuff like that. You have to take a GRE. You have to have so many observation hours, and so that's where that observation before my senior year started. So that's when it really started for that. But just especially if you're unsure about if you want to do that, if PT is something, go find a PT. I mean, you're welcome to come to Cleveland and hang out with me if you want to.
There's the offer, folks. We have it recorded too. So
yep, it's on recording. Yeah, go find a local PT clinic if that's something that you want to try, and then observe it for, even if it's just an hour, see what the day looks like, see what an hour looks like. I was fortunate enough to have somebody in the field that I talked to him, and I was like, I'm considering this. Do you care if I come and just hang out? And so that's what really helped me delve into the PT world of it. As far as grades, with athletics, that takes up a huge chunk of your time. And it did end up redoing a couple classes at North Georgia, which it was like Bio 107. And
really?
just because I had I think a C in there, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just use that to bump up my GPA. And then I applied to PT schools, and
I got a C in this in intro bio class too. So
yeah,
it's not over when you have one little blip. It's fine, right?
And that's a great point. So the way the timeline worked was I signed up for the classes, had maybe 2 or 3 weeks of those classes, and applied to PT schools. And before I even finished those classes, I got into PT school. So, just because you have a C here or there doesn't really, that's not a huge deal. And especially there's a big shift, I feel like now, for PT schools to work into more interviews, work into more interpersonal communication skills. Of course, they have to have the numbers on the paper at some point, but I feel like there's a bigger push for learning the person more than, the number on the sheet.
Yeah, I gotcha. And when you put in your application, you got an interview. What are some things that you feel like in your portfolio that helped you? I suppose being a football player was something that you could speak to.
Yeah. For me, I brought up the athletic side of it, working in an area where there's a lot of athletes. We get some athletes throughout the clinic and stuff like that. So that was a big part of it. Having the observation hours is a big part of it, and having connections. So if you know the professors at a certain PT school, and someone who went to a PT school where they went, talk to them, build relationships. It's a big part of communication. Stuff like that. PT school was basically going online, and the school that I went to, it was a first-year program, so they weren't using the big, broad PT CAS as an application system. They had their own application system, which I think they're on PT CAS now, but basically signed up through that, and then got a call for an interview. You go in and they ask you questions like, they have some odds and ends questions. Basically, when's a hard time that you experience? What's a hard experience that you had? How'd you overcome it? Things like that. I have heard of people getting asked, if you had to fight Abraham Lincoln on a bear or George Washington with a samurai sword, which one would you rather fight? And it's just questions to get to know you and how you handle pressure, any kind of background with physical therapy. Another great example of kind of a realm of physical therapy that I did over at Reinhardt was a hippotherapy clinic. So walking with horses, using their gait patterns to help build musculature in all kinds of populations. They do veterans at the barn that I was at. They also do pediatrics, so younger children. I just happened to find that with Taylor Asher. She's a PT now too. And so, yeah, we both were in the same year, graduated. I think she went to a different school, but
okay. No kidding. I thought I was just thinking about Taylor the other day.
Yeah.
So
we both observed there.
Yeah, but so you took advantage of the opportunities that you could see here.
Yeah.
And soaked it all up. You got in. Which school did you go to for your DPT?
Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine.
I have a lot of good luck with. We have dentists, doctors,
DOs, doctors, pharmacists.
Okay, excellent. And do you feel?
Yep.
Do you feel like you were well prepared when you got to PT school?
Yeah. Of course, it's a medical field. There's a lot of I just realized there's a big old glare there. So, it's obviously a biological field. It's a medical field. You're going to be working with the human body. So stuff like your anatomy is really important. And there's a lot of chemistry involved with it. So it's really a well-rounded biological field. As far as the stuff that you're hitting at Reinhardt, you're going to be hitting, regular gen bio. You're going to be hitting your chemistry. You got to work through physics. There's a good bit of physics in physical therapy. You can imagine force arms versus vectors and all that stuff. So all of it is stuff that I feel like we touched on at Reinhardt. And then obviously, as you get the doctorate program, it just takes what you've built that foundation on and dives a little bit deeper into it.
So now you are Dr. Joe, and you'd show up for a typical day. What's a typical day, or is there a typical day for you?
Yeah, it's pretty typical. Sticks pretty much to the same schedule. So I was able to work through kind of designing my own schedule. I know I have some PT friends who are working 312s at a acute care hospital setting, and then I know for me, I'm working 5 days a week, generally 9-ish to 6:30-ish. And every clinic that you go to, you're going to see a different amount of patients. I had a rotation where we saw essentially 8 maximum patients a day, 1 per hour. Depending on your comfort level with it, you can see more. So generally we try to, for first visits, have that solo to where they're not being seen with anybody else, so that we can really dive into what's going on, figure out what their problems are, and then from there develop a home exercise program for them. And basically, I, on this computer, have a documentation system set up to where I can keep track of, what the patient told me last time, the things that we were doing, things that I plan to add next visit, areas that I want to work on, areas of, specific muscles that I want to hit. And then typing in how they respond to a treatment. That's basically what our daily note looks like. With an eval, you're going to be taking measurements, how far are they able to move their arm, or their neck, or their toe, or their knee, or hip, or whatever. So taking some measurements, it usually takes a little bit longer to type those out because you want to get a good background of what their injury consists of, how long it's been going on, stuff like that.
So it's kind of like a big experiment in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have special tests. So like if I suspect somebody has a rotator cuff, I formulate the hypothesis, they're going to have difficulty with these different issues. And then there are certain ways that I can test it. So I'll have them hold a specific position. And if they're unable to hold a spot or something like that, then that's a good way to test out your hypothesis. And then, because a lot of times you think, okay, well, you're going to go to the physician and then they're going to take an x-ray and then you're going to know exactly what's going on. And then you're going to come into physical therapy and they're going to say, all right, you have this specific thing. This is what we're going to do. But a lot of times the diagnosis, because of insurance companies and stuff like that now, they don't approve MRIs until afterward, after physical therapy. So it just says right shoulder pain. And so you have to, figure out through your history, gather evidence through your history and your special tests and stuff like that to confirm or deny your hypothesis. And then sometimes it works out to where you develop a hypothesis, you test it out, it works out, you treat it for 3 or 4 visits, and then it's not really working out. You go back to your hypothesis, gather more evidence, retest, reassess, and then from there you work through your next hypothesis.
Sounds like fun. I think I'm going to change my major here.
Yeah. Hey, you know where to come.
So what do you like the most and what do you hate the most about your job?
Hate the most is an easy question that I feel like most PTs would give you the same answer with. And it's the computer. Right? Yeah. Your documentation is a huge part of your every medical field has a lot of documentation.
So you get help with that? I know I see one student on here, Rosa, is interested in becoming a physical therapist assistant, but do you guys have people sometimes that are there with a pad to keep notes? Or
yeah, so it depends on your clinic and kind of how it's set up. I have worked with PTs before who go up to one of their techs and they say, all right, we did this and this and this, and then they kind of dictate it to them. Mm-hmm. I do have a friend who works in home health, who drives, to and from places, to people's houses. And he has a software set up to where he can dictate it into a voice recording, and then it'll type it out into a note. Generally, I've been able to do all of the notes myself. But, on those heavy days, you do spend a little bit of extra time outside of the clinic. Some people are very adamant about getting the notes done as they do them, but usually you can go home and spend an hour maximum and knock them out, depending on the level.
Yeah. And what's your favorite thing about it?
Oh, favorite thing about it? The people. Yeah. Being able to interact with people, and especially, people who are coming to you at a point in their life where they're like, I don't know what's going on. My shoulder hurts, my knee hurts. It's been going on for years. And then being able to, deduce what's going on and then work with them. And one thing that I'm a big proponent of is teamwork, right? It's not me working on this stuff. It's me and the patient and the physician and the pharmacist and everybody else working together as a team, and that team environment and being able to help people who have had years and years and years of pain be able to do things as simple as, comb their hair. That's probably the most rewarding part of it.
Yeah, I can see that. As much as you're willing to share, what's the sort of the economic realities? We've had some people come with their career and there's this perception they make all this money, but the reality is it costs so much. One guy told us, he said, if you go to vet school outside of the state, you will never break even.
Yeah.
So what are the balance of costs for PT school versus what you make and all that?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I feel like like you said, there is a big misconception around it. As far as, people think you're a doctor, you're going to make $200,000 a year. It's not that. It's one of those things where you still have to be diligent with it, as far as, paying off loans. If you have loans, if you're able to get out without loans, more power to you. But, it's something that you can easily pay off as long as you're diligent with it. I have I've heard anywhere from people who recently graduated. I've heard people get offered like 60, 70. And then I've also heard of people in my class get an offer for 90-ish stuff, depending on, it really is a variable thing, depending on the clinic that you're going to, depending on the setting that you're going to, the population around the clinic. So, you're going to have a different demographic in rural Helen, Georgia, that you're going to have in Midtown Atlanta.
Just what your lifestyle choice and how you live, I guess.
And that's the good part about it too, is it's everywhere, right? Yeah. It's somewhere that I could do it in Canton. I could do it in, up in Alaska. Yeah. You do have to have a state licensure. So after you graduate, you take a big 250 question test. And you have to pass that plus a few other things, but and that gets you a license in the state. There is a compact going on now to where if I get a license in Georgia, then I can do it in like 30 other states. If you go to one of those other states, it might be that you have to get that licensure too. So you have to pass their state boards, but for the most part, you're pretty much able to go anywhere you want to.
Yeah, I think it's a smart choice. A lot of our students are interested in that. So I'm going to give the students a few minutes. If you guys have some questions for Joe, it's a great opportunity to pick his brain.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking. So that's your choice.
So I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So looking at it from a, I don't know how you'd say this, but say you were opening your own PT clinic of the sorts, like kind of a entrepreneur of the sorts. How competitive do you think that field will be, and how competitive is it right now?
As far as competing with
other businesses, such as a large hospital or something like that.
Yeah, it's tough to open your own clinic. So I actually, in PT school, developed a cash-based practice business plan and all this other stuff to help kind of, see what the market was like on it. And it's tough because you have a lot of really established clinics, places like Benchmark. They have a lot of resources and they have a lot of marketing resource. They have a lot more outreach. But one thing that I found is if you're able to find a niche, so if you say, I'm Gabe and I'm going to be the best shoulder PT there is, and then once you start developing that relationship with patients, and then once you start developing that relationship with physicians and other providers in your area, you're going to be known as Gabe the shoulder guy. And it's going to be, people are going to refer to you word of mouth. So it's really finding a niche is going to be your best bet to get into specific cash-based solo practice. But, that's one of those things that unless you have something in mind going into PT school, then you can really develop yourself in a clinic like this to where you spend a couple of years and then you're like, okay, I know that this is something that I like. So you're fine.
I appreciate that because my goal is to become a PT and then open up my own clinic. So I was wondering about kind of like the, some of the problems that I may face, trying to compete with other places.
Yeah. That'd be fun. So it's one of those things where you have to have referrals, right? We do have direct access in Georgia. You have to be so far removed from school before you can have a patient come in and be like, I haven't seen anybody for this shoulder pain. I'm coming to you first. So that is an option, but we still have to, I think it's like 7 visits. After that, we have to have some sort of referral. But in Georgia, you're able to see somebody for 7 visits, and then hopefully you can help them out. And then they just need to go get a piece of paper that says you're good to treat. So yeah, it's definitely a viable option. I know people who have opened up private practices and they are thriving. So
okay, Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else? Blaine, you want to go to PT school? What are you thinking about?
I do, but I'm pretty sure most of my questions have been answered. My big worries was like just the attending of PT school and how it is.
As far as the getting in or the doing during?
Getting in is the main part, because I was wondering, like, because I have a couple of PTs that I want to go have my observation hours in.
Yeah.
And the hard part's just finding people to refer to get me in, or if it's just primarily off grades.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just finding connections is a big part of it. That was, something that I was able to take advantage of. Like you said, if you're able to go to a clinic where you have, a PT friend, if they went to PT school around here, be like, hey, who do I need to talk to? Who, in admissions do I need to talk to? What's really competitive to get into PT school, as far as like what grade would I absolutely have to have versus, they're going to give you a minimum. But, as I'm sure some of y'all know, it's one of those things where it's growing in competitiveness, and you can have the minimum scores, but it's going to be a good bit more than that to really have your pick of a place, if that makes sense. I know that didn't quite answer your question.
I think it was pretty good. I think I'm good. Right. Thank you.
See you, Dr. Donnell. I meant to catch her before she left if she did leave, but
labs at 12:30 here, so
yeah.
People are going to be bailing out. Any other questions from anybody?
So Joe, it's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you guys.
I'm so excited to see you working and happy and all of that. So
yeah.
Do you want to talk a little, just a quick assessment of your time management when you were here at school and balancing football and your courses?
Yeah. So one thing that has helped me throughout my entire school career, especially in PT school, because it's a little bit more lax in that you have more home time to do stuff versus like football and school. But one thing that I have found helped me the most was keeping a planner. Like I'll have a book of, not just, some people like to do bio, chemistry, physics, whatever. I like to have all of my stuff in there together. And then I would schedule out, from this time, I would do it a week or two in advance. I'd say this day at 5:00, I cannot make any more plans because I'm not going to do anything other than have my nose buried in the Bible book. So scheduling stuff out and having a written record that you have to hold yourself accountable to is what worked really well for me. Some people, they just like to, they're like, I'll get to it. And then they find the time somewhere. But I know me enough to know I need to write it down or else I'm not going to be able to do it. As far as, and using that, I also use that very similarly to how I studied for boards. So basically I graduated in May, took the boards in August because they only offer them at certain points in the year. And I did the same thing, write out a planner, have it broken up by day, and then say, from 6 to 7 on Monday through Friday, nobody's talking to me. I'm shutting my phone off. I'm buried in the PT book. And so keeping written records is what helps me personally. Sometimes, stuff happens as far as football goes and athletics and being able to manage both of those things. But at the end of the day, you can find a time where There's not going to be any overlap into football. There's not going to be any overlap from class or lab. And that's your golden spots of taking time to study.
Great, thank you. I like the plan idea. I think it works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the point about having to put away all the distractions.
Yep.
That's really good too.
But
it's a good
yeah,
insight.
We're lucky. A lot of our students are athletes. I mean, more than half of our students are, and there's obviously a connection. I think again, it gets back to the exposure. What do you want to do? Well, I want to be a PT. Why? Because I've gone to a PT because I'm an athlete, right?
Yeah.
But we see this just, and I will say that I think that the Chronics did a pretty good job of making sure like you are a student first, and that's not a statement about our current coach or whatever, but I know that's kind of a top-down thing, but students have to find that balance, because I think that does give you a lot of leadership skills. It gives you a lot to, for your personal story, for an interview, but you also have to balance that with everything else. And sometimes I think students or athletes have to advocate for themselves to just say, sorry, Charlie, I've got to,
at the end of the day, you're there for an education before you're there before, PT or football or anything like that. Another good point to that is quality of time. So if you have an hour and this is more speaking to myself, if I say in 2 weeks on Thursday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to have an hour to study, then that hour, you can fit a lot more in that hour than you think, because a lot of people like to kind of dilute their studying with, breaks here and there, as far as like, okay, well, I'll look at my phone for 5 minutes or something like that.
This thing, right?
Yep. But a high quality, high intensity studying for an hour, is more achievable than, well, I got about 3 hours. I'm going to, fiddle on the phone. I'm going to study as much as I can and stuff like that.
Well, excellent. Well, I think a lot of people have to take off, and I'm want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate, Joe. It's just when I ran into you at football, it made me happy to see you there. And you're one of the memorable people that we've had come through here. So I remember you sitting in intro bio with your jaw wired up.
Yeah, I forgot I was in intro bio with that. Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming back, and we'll certainly be in touch, and we may send people your way with questions or looking for experience or anything like that. Yeah,
like I said, I appreciate it. Wouldn't be where I am without you guys. So
likewise.
Like I said, they have my contact info. If any of y'all want to reach out, feel free to reach out, email, text, phone call, whatever. I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and help you out as much as I can. But
awesome. You're the man, Joe. Thanks, buddy.
Absolutely. See y'all.
Thanks so much, Joe. It's great to see you. Bye-bye.